Have you ever felt like your whole world is shifting? Like everything you knew or you thought you knew is like kind of collapsing, and you're finding yourself in this mess of emotions and like new life events just hitting you, and you're just feeling this deep sense of inner turmoil or meaninglessness, or like you don't know what's going on. We want to discuss in that video what that really means, what a spiritual awakening is, and I made some notes for that to say in the beginning, because it's like such a personal journey, and my channel is about spirituality, psychedelics, trauma healing, all these topics. But yet I was kind of pushing the video for like, what is a spiritual awakening, because it's so personal and there are things happening that you cannot really describe. For me, it's really important to reach you with this video and to have you really an open mind and listen and question yourself and be honest with yourself. If you want to find out what a spiritual awakening is, the definition, the triggers, what enhances it, a personal experience from my life, then what happens, what is a spiritual awakening not. If you want to find all that out, so then I wish you a nice time watching, and especially with this amazing view. I did not shy away from the efforts to reach middle of the nature in the mountains, and it's really nice to have you here in this background with me. So enjoy watching. What is a spiritual awakening? Yeah, it is, let's say, it's like a profound shift in your perspective. You see beyond the material world, you kind of feel another dimension, so to speak, opening up for you, and you really question everything. So you come to contact with deeper truths of the universe. What does it mean? You feel this like connectedness to higher realms, but at the same time also have a lot of challenges, like challenges that bring so many emotions up. It feels like kind of getting tight. That's how I always described it. It was like kind of getting tight. Like I felt like I cannot escape anywhere. The things that I did so far, they didn't work anymore. The people I was hanging out with wasn't resonating with me anymore. So a lot of stuff is like a lot of chaos in that. And it's different from let's say you have like a spiritual insight. You have an insight, and you realize something really profound for you. A spiritual awakening is a process. It's not just like a one-time event, and then your life's going to be all amazing. It's like a process, and so many things happen. So it's a bit different than from a normal spiritual insight you might have every now and then in your life. Of course, you have a lot of spiritual insights when you have a spiritual awakening, but just one of these insights is not like, oh, I'm having a spiritual awakening. So let's see what are the signs, or what are the triggers first. I want to talk about the triggers. What is it that creates a spiritual awakening? What is it that it happens? And even though, like I said, it's so personal, so your story is probably like completely different from my story or from other people's story that share about their experiences, but there's mostly some like similarities in the stories, and I want to dive into these a little bit. So for example, what it can trigger is when you have like a big life crisis. Something really intense happens. Let's say a divorce or a burnout. Your company goes to crash, and you lose all your money. You lose your apartment. Somebody breaks up with you. You find out that your partner was cheating. So many things can trigger it, and this is really what connects the most stories. That somehow it was getting it, like you have the feeling like the hell breaks loose in your life, or that you come to a point when you don't enjoy anything anymore. For me, it was when I really had more and more depression back in Zurich. I had more and more depression, and yeah, for me, it was really tough to make the meaning out of my life. I did not enjoy anything I was doing anymore. So really, these intense life situations are usually what one can trigger a spiritual awakening. And of course, what also people record is meditation or psychedelic experience. So in a really deep meditation, and I will talk about meditation maybe in another video, why is it so helpful. So you can, because of this moment of stillness, and you kind of train yourself to not judge your thoughts and feelings, but to just observe them and watch them, you're getting much more aware of what is happening in your inner world. You're getting much more aware, like your feelings and triggers you have. And so when you start a meditation practice, it can happen that your spiritual awakening either gets like pushed, or it's just like it's not like it's creating it, but you start the meditation practice because you kind of already have a spiritual awakening, and then along the line you enhance that with your meditation practice. Then of course psychedelic experience, like a big one. For me, I think the biggest breakthrough was my first ayahuasca ceremony in 2019. But probably already, and the spiritual awakening is such a long process, then there are so many things happening before you even realize that something's happening, because it just reaches your subconscious. You forget about it again, you go with your normal routines and stuff. And this was for me in 2016 when I was in Costa Rica and had my first LSD, that somehow, because it was so crazy, that I completely questioned the concept of reality. And when you have an experience like this, you kind of go on with your normal life. But really back, you're like, what happened? Like, it's something really profound happened, or you saw something that you cannot even really grab. And so it can be that, like, even with your psychedelic experience, it's all like kind of joining your journey. It can really be intense, that you get this feeling of oneness, and you dive into it, into your subconscious, but all these realms are like connected to everything, and you feel this universal love. You come into in connection with the divine. So this can be really, really intense and pushing your spiritual awakening like a lot. And depending on the substance, of course, or what you use it for. But for me, I think there was a really big part, and I'm really glad that I was able to dive into this field, especially with ayahuasca here in Europe, because of course you can go to the Amazon and do that, and it's like on a completely different level. But even that we have it here in Europe and are able to benefit from these medicines is really amazing to me. And another point, of course, when you have encounters with spiritual teachers, or you ask yourself just this deep existential questions, and it's kind of like this nagging feeling. It kind of is in your mind somewhere, but it doesn't really reach you. You kind of still block it. And then there comes this time when you cannot longer block it. It's like you can start drinking more, you can do all the compensation strategies you have done so far, you do it more, because these existential questions are coming, like, and you're like, oh, I have to face it, I have to face it. And when you're brave enough and really sit down and like, okay, what do I really want? What is going on? Why is my life how it is? What has all this stuff to do with me? Why are happening always the same things to me? Why I'm ending up in the same situations? Am I really happy? Where do I want to live, really? In which country and under what circumstances? Is there God? Is there like a life after this life? So many existential questions. They come up, and in the first you're like, oh my God, what is happening? Because it's so much, and you question so much, and you don't know what to do with all that stuff. So all these things can be really triggering for a spiritual awakening. And then also, I think that your soul knows what it's doing, and the divine energy, the universe, God, however you want to call it, also knows what it's doing. So I think in each life, all these things that happen for a reason, and also a spiritual awakening is happening for a reason, and also the timing when it happens for a reason. Nothing happens just by chance, and that's why it's so amazing. And especially when you start to realize that even more, that everything's like, wow, like an orchestra of things and events and people you meet and emotional breakdowns you have, so many things that happen, and you start to realize it all makes sense in the way that it happens. So that was point 2 from 10, guys. Let's see. Let's see where we're going here. Yeah, we're coming to a really interesting part that probably many of you are interested in. That what are the signs of the spiritual awakening? How do you know that you're not just completely lost your mind? How do you know that it might be a spiritual awakening? So I want to go through the signs and what is really the case for so many people, and it was so big for me, is that you're feeling completely disconnected from societal norms and beliefs. You're just like, I cannot even deal in this world anymore. Like, what is going on? Is everybody blind? Is nobody seeing it? Like, the frame we're living in and this kind of conditioning of our society, you really start to see it and to question it. And all your old beliefs, you really start to feel like, is this stuff that I'm believing actually all true? You come to really deep life questions. Did I actually have a happy childhood? Do I really belong to my partner? Do I really want to do this job anymore? Like this questioning of, do I even have to be together with somebody? Can I not just be alone and fulfill my purpose? You kind of really break this societal, let's say, status quo, and you feel disconnected, of course, because you're like, I'm an alien, like nobody understands me, and all these things that I'm feeling, that I realize and that I see, nobody else seems to see. So you feel even more weird, and of course also like you're losing your mind a little bit, but you really think that nobody else is getting it, and you feel really disconnected. So this can be a sign. And also, like, all these signs can of course be something else, but it's just common signs that I collected that people encounter. What also happens is your compassion, mindfulness, and desire for deeper meaning gets increased. So because you get into touch with your own pain and with your own darkness and the reality of also the stuff you did, so some guilt, you come into touch with shame, with a deep feeling of not being good enough, and you realize that this is something we all share. We have mostly been in environments that did not really tell us from the beginning that we're good enough and that we're worthy and lovable just the way we are. It was usually connected to conditions. So we kind of grow up with this, like, I think I'm not good enough. And this is usually subconscious. But when you dive deeper and you make this stuff conscious, also your sadness, your grief, and frustration, you can much more easier to connect to others and see that in others. And you see that behind anger might be just sadness or pain. So your compassion gets increased, especially for empathetic people. That is really a big thing because we're already feeling a lot. And this is also usually due to a traumatic past, when your empathetic abilities were just alert all the time. You had to like scan the environment. And so you're really kind of in this fight mode, alert, empathetic state the majority of your life. So for these people, it's even more intense. And world pain, you feel the pain of the world. Everything is like burning, like what is going on? And all these compassion and empathy gets increased. And mindfulness, then the desire for a deeper meaning. You think about, like, what is the meaning of that all? Why am I alive? And this, you have to be really aware that this is a question not every human being is asking themselves. And for me, that was a long time all these things, I thought other people have that as well. But it's not the case. Like when you talk to so many people, especially when you're in the middle of your spiritual awakening, you realize not everybody is thinking about the same stuff that you think about. Um, of course, we made this experience many times in our lives that we are kind of different. Like I had that so long time in my life that I thought I'm just a completely different human being. I'm like an alien. I'm like not. I don't belong here. All these people are kind of not as I am. And before you kind of put that in a shameful way, so I'm different. I'm weird. I'm somehow wrong and broken and something like that. But then you realize that it is different, that you ask yourself these like deep questions, like really philosophical questions. You are a deep thinker. Maybe you have been somebody who was alone many times in your childhood because you couldn't really relate to so many other kids. And this deeper meaning search gets more. It just gets more. You cannot avoid it anymore. You're doing an office job and then you kind of like, I cannot do this anymore. What is the meaning behind that all? So that is a really common sign that you might go through such a period of change. And then, of course, and that's what I always say, like, guys, it's a roller coaster. It's not a linear process. It's not like we're here and then we have spiritual awakening and then it all goes like smoothly towards the light and our highest self expression, everything. No, it's like a really intense roller coaster. So you have a lot of emotional highs and lows. And that is because, we live in duality. Everything is like black and white is the same thing, just two sides of one spectrum. Good and evil is actually the same thing, just two like dual sides of the one thing. And this is like what happens to our emotions. We are allowing ourselves, or it's in the first, it just rather happens to us, but then with the time we allow ourselves to feel more intensely, because we're going also into deeper layers of painful emotions, which is really important, because otherwise we cannot extract the treasure that is in there, in this painful childhood emotions that there usually are. And you allow that more to happen, so you kind of dive deep into feelings of like hopelessness and feeling of intense anger, like rage, that I really realized I experienced when I was especially like a teenager, because it was all so unfair, and the abuse and the like injustice of it all and the humiliation I was like experiencing. Physical violence and emotional violence can be so, or is humiliating for us as a human being. And to dive back into these emotions of feeling deeply unworthy and like, it's just intense stuff to feel there. And especially like, or it depends on what journey you have, but it can be really intense. But also the lows, you're sitting there. Sometimes I remember in 2019 I was sitting on the lake and I could not imagine the beauty of everything and all these human beings I was seeing, walking them past, and I just felt the inner children in them. And I was like, they were all like me. They were all like a kid playing, and they were all happy and laughing. And when you are a really young child, so I just saw walking around little children, and this completely changed my perception. And I felt this connection and love for these other human beings, even though I did not know them, or I did not even know what kind of story they have. Then also the connection with yourself. This really can be ecstatic feeling to realize this oneness and this source of love that is inside you, and the bliss and the gratitude for life and the universe, and even the gratitude for all the bad stuff that happened, because it just made you kind of wake up to this truth, because it was like kind of pushing you so hard that you just, something cracked and you woke up to the reality, and you're sitting there like, I cannot even believe it. And it's like really blissful. And it all has their time. Like is like happens in phases. Sometimes you have like, an emotional outburst in the car, like I had few times, a few years ago. I'm actually glad I had a car at this time because it gave me the opportunity to sometimes just cry so hard or even scream in the car that I think it was really good for my emotional like expression. And but also the highs were like really intense in the last years for me, and still is, but we kind of start to handle it better and get used to it and like, okay, there we go again. But it gets easier. It's not getting less intense, but it gets easier. And then the last point of common signs of a spiritual awakening is that what is happen very likely, and I think even 100% probability, is that your relationships and your life priorities are going to shift completely. Like, it just starts a little bit, but then after a while, your priorities, the stuff you want to spend your time with, and the boundaries you want to make with people or with situations, it just shifts everything. For me, one of the biggest like kind of really intense shifts was when I broke up with my ex-partner. And this happened after one of my most intense ayahuasca experiences in Peru. Not straight after, because we also we should not make decisions too quick and too intense in the first like time. You're gonna wait a little and see how things like turn out. But when I made the decision, I really made up my mind for 1.5 months at least. But the reality hit me so hard on that topic that was like, okay, wow, it's like my eyes were opened, the tomatoes, they dropped off my eyes. And I realized what was there all the time, but I just realized it. So this was when I broke up with my ex-partner. And your life priorities. So you're gonna stop doing your party lifestyle you maybe have, or you stop drinking alcohol. You start reading instead of going out. So many priorities, the topics you kind of deal with. You don't want to be in social media again. You just rather listen to a podcast or something. So the life priorities, and then of course, when your life priorities change, the people will not always understand. Like there's so many things. Then when you go through, you're gonna lose people because they think you're weird. Like what is going on with you? I don't have any friends anymore from my party life back in the day because it was all built on this superficial fun lifestyle. So no context from there. So be prepared to lose all people, basically, to lose everybody. You have to get really comfortable in spending time alone, because this might be your new reality for a few years. And when you go through that, you feel like you're losing everybody, like people don't want to hang out with you or you don't want to hang out with them. It's also a big sign for spiritual awakening. So when you realize you're in that, then you know when you know. Guys, we're already on 25 minutes and I've just finished point 3. Okay, let's see. I want to share a personal experience on that, and then let you know maybe what challenged me the most in my personal experience. So my spiritual awakening began 2000. Now I cannot even really say when it began. I went on my world trip 2014, but was moving out to Switzerland before. So I think probably the spiritual awakening started at my birth, to be honest. Because all the trauma, all the stuff that happened later is kind of part of the spiritual awakening, and also the time before the awakening, so when you're still asleep, is also part of the spiritual awakening, because that prepares you. So when did it start? I don't know. The really intense break was 2019 or 18, 19. Because I was getting so depressed that for me it was, I could not even handle my life anymore. So I was coming to this kind of point, okay, I was literally in my deepest depression, thinking about, okay, I cannot take the pain anymore. I have to end my life or something's going to change. And then what happened after? What happened in that intense time? I choose to have my first ayahuasca experience, and it was so transformative. So what I experienced there, and I think it's like a whole content for a video itself, my first ayahuasca experience. If you're interested in that, let me know. That after that, I could not really go on as before. And the most challenging thing was that I had the feeling I'm completely alone with this. And I felt so isolated and alone. And it really took so much courage to still drop the compensation strategies and their old patterns, and to keep going, to stay on, like, I don't want the old anymore. This was really challenging in the beginning, in this time of like when everything was kind of shattered. And by the way, there's not just one spiritual awakening. It kind of like, it's, how to describe it? Getting into this, you like, you have a reality, and then after a while it gets tighter and tighter. You're like a caterpillar. It gets tighter, and you have to like kind of break out from the reality you are living in, and embrace new worldviews, thoughts. They have like a higher frequency, so you enter like higher frequency level things, and this happens after and after. So there's like layers and many points in your life where you can experience that. But especially in the beginning, when you have no idea what's going on, because you don't know it's a spiritual awakening. In the beginning, I just really thought I'm the biggest mess on this planet, and nobody will ever understand me. And I don't know, I did not understand anything anymore. And to not be in this time with somebody to share and to kind of relate and connect was really challenging for me. But also, I think, really important. So I think we meet these people that help us on our journey, or we kind of stay alone. Every person needs something different. So if you are somebody who has contacts to these kind of people, you can talk about what you're going through. That's amazing. But if you are alone, just don't think something is wrong with you. Maybe you're supposed to be alone. Maybe for you, there's always this alone time. So embrace it rather than fight it. Maybe this universe wants to teach you something, wants to tell you something. And when you resist it and you're like afraid of being alone, especially when you get so intense, then you can kind of prolong the whole thing. That maybe it's just easier when we don't resist. This was how it was for me to this point. And I will talk about much more about Dark Night of the Soul, for example. What brings me to the next point. And I will just talk about much more about the whole spiritual journey, because it's so eye-opening and such a beautiful journey in the end. So point 5, guys. Common misconceptions about spiritual awakening. I don't know, if somebody would told me 10 years ago about there is such a thing as spiritual awakening, I would probably have these misconceptions as well, because we cannot really know until we experience it. Is that many people think, or is probably like a mainstream thought, is that a spiritual awakening is really light and love and bliss, and you just are connected to God and your life's purpose, and then you're just gonna take the steps to fulfill your life purposes. Everything's gonna be amazing, and your whole family heals. Everybody's coming together on one table, and this is what I thought for a while, that everything's gonna be okay, But it's gonna be okay, but not in the sense that we thought before, with our little limited minds. So this is what you can just be really aware of, that it's not going to be easy, and it's normal that's not going to be easy. It's supposed to not be easy. So don't think something's wrong with you when let's say you go to a meditation class, or you go on a spiritual retreat or something, and then you kind of have like a depression after for 1 week. That doesn't mean something goes wrong. It means you're going through an intense process. And like I said, the best thing is to not resist it, and rather feel it, go really in it and feel it, because it's really valuable stuff that comes up. When you are able to face it and to feel it, you can really transform it and let it go, because we cannot let go of something that we kind of don't even allow ourselves to feel. Like I said before, the dark night of the soul, which is an event, or it can be a period of time that happens to people that can be really challenging. And I'm going to make a separate video about that. But I think it's this kind of moment that I was described before. Everything is like getting really tense, and the caterpillar is like a second before getting out to be the butterfly. It's like when it gets this tight that you're like going insane. This is the dark night of the soul. And this is really challenging, guys. This is really challenging. So it is one of the toughest journeys, and just the bravest they get through, and just the ones who are really willing to face it, and like still being brave enough to self-reflect and to not just call everybody else and the whole world crazy, and seeing into your own misery of existence, and not taking responsibility and accountability, because that's what is asked for of us in this time. And yeah, what also many people think that like another misconception is that it's not a one-time event and then everything is amazing. Like I said before, it's a process, and with the time you will kind of understand the process better. You will feel the rhythm of it, the ups and downs, and then kind of, because dark night of the soul also happens many times in a lifetime of a human who's really going on the journey of self-discovery and diving into the divine meaning of everything. And so this is what many people think, that it's just a one-time thing and then you're all enlightened. But it's an ongoing process that I think never really ends. So now we come to an interesting question. Point 6. Why does it happen? Why does it happen? And there are like a few theories, and I have a few theories here. Theory 1 is the soul is evolving and seeking for its higher purpose. So everything is evolution, right? Everything gets more complex. The whole universe is learning. Especially because when you think about it, it's like a feedback loop, like consciousness is a feedback loop. What you perceive comes inside of you, and then you also, you create the reality with your perception. So it's this kind of like endless feedback loop. And that's also what I think is the sign of infinity, is that it comes in, and through that you are a creator. You create the things, because whatever you perceive, your emotion's going to be, your life changes, your life decisions change, your whole way of being changes, and then you kind of put other things out into the world. And I think this is the purpose of the evolution of the soul, is that you get into higher and higher frequencies. They are closer to the divine order and the higher intelligence, that it gets more, how to say, like reality gets, you feel that potential we have as human beings to create, let's say, all like the good attributes of the divine, like kindness, wisdom, a power, but in a healthy way, in a way of that, like, I'm using my power, I'm not dimming my light, I'm not staying, in this tight thing. Compassion, all these things that are like divine and from God, we are able to kind of raise into them and leave the lower frequency stuff behind. And this is where like creativity can bloom, and it gets like better and better, and you have like better relationships, and you perceive the world as more beautiful, you're more in peace, more coherent. So your brain and your heart are in a more coherent relationship. So everything can like happen in a much more magic way than it ever did before. And then you come close to the actually soul's purpose, because then you're just starting to be courageous enough to think about, what is my purpose? And every soul has a purpose here. It's not happening anything without a reason, and every human being has a purpose. And I think this is like the biggest yearning of the soul, to come to this, I want to live that why I'm here for. At least this is for me such a big topic in my life, that I really want to do in the lifetime I have. I really want to do that why I'm here, why I came here. So we get this opportunity in this experience called life to first wake up from the dream of separateness, and realize we are this soul, we are connected to everything, we are connected to the divine. And then how to manifest what wants to be manifested through us in a good way. And it gets easier and easier, because you let this negative belief patterns behind. You kind of leave emotions behind, like pride, anger. So the higher frequency emotions are more present in your life. And another theory is that a spiritual awakening is a response to personal or collective imbalance. And that's what I also think. It is kind of a response to a personal imbalance, but it's like kind of an integral part of this whole evolution. So there's like an imbalance. Let's say you're depressed and you're not living your purpose, you're not living your life. And this is what I said, you come to this like tight point. And after this point, this is usually what they say in evolution science, that like a society or a system or whatever, when it comes to this breaking point, it either develops or it jumps like a step of the evolution ladder higher. So it evolves, gets more intelligent, makes adjustments that are beneficial, or it regresses. It falls back into the mess of the times before, and it just makes a step backward. And I think that's what happened to when we think about like the civilization of Egypt, for example, and then Europe in 15th century. I don't know. Like, I think there was a step backwards. And this is like these imbalances. But this imbalance, again, create the ground for spiritual awakening. And this is just not just individual. It's on a collective level. We as humanity, the consciousness of the collective, and then your own consciousness. But it's all connected anyway. So it all makes sense, like what you experience on an individual level, and then what happens on a collective level, that it creates a kind of ground for evolution. And I think this is what we also see in the world, or what I saw especially. I think COVID was a big catalyst for, in the first side, creating imbalance and chaos. But on the greater scale, when you think about it, it created also the ground for many people to have a spiritual awakening and to really question their own life and what is going on in their lives. And so on a grand scale, all the catastrophes, all the bad things that happen are like a symptom, a sign, but also a catalyst for growth. And then, yeah, I think every soul, or in the grander scale of universal magic, everything happens because you kind of planned it to happen as a soul, on a soul level, not as a human. Of course, I did not plan to have a traumatic childhood and to have been through the stuff that I've been through, but on a soul level, you go this path that is most beneficial for you in the end. We cannot see it because we have our limited minds and we're like, what is going on? But on a grander scale, it all makes sense. And this is why also I find psychedelics so beneficial, is that you kind of get in touch with this all-knowing intelligence. You kind of can get in touch, and you can get wisdom from it, and insight and realizations that you cannot unsee. They were there. And yeah, it's just a huge or a big important part in my life on this journey to support these things, because I'm so also curious about, wow, like quantum field and reality and, I don't know, black holes and inner world, the chakras and past lives, like reincarnation, all this kind of thing. So you can dive really into deep topics, and it's really fascinating. And I will do the next points in the next part, my friends, because otherwise it's getting too long, and I don't want to overwhelm you with stuff. And I'm going to make a second video that would include the journey after awakening, what is an awakening not, how to navigate a spiritual awakening, and it's then some final words from me. And yeah, I'm really curious what you think about this one, about this topic, what we talked about, what it is, and then the common signs. Let me know if you have experienced some of these signs or these challenges that I described. If something of that resonates with you, I'm really curious about that. And also please share, because like I said, sharing our experiences, and it doesn't even have to be like, oh, I had a spiritual awakening. Just share your struggle, and share, not just here, I mean in general. When you find people, just really speak from your heart and share what is your struggle, what you're going through, and what are your challenges, what are your emotions that are coming up. Because when you meet people, they can meet you and they really see you. It can be really beneficial. So please share, guys. Then I'm looking forward to the next part, to the last and to the next part, and I wish you a beautiful day. I will link to the next part in the description, of course, and let me know what you thought. And then I wish you a nice time until then, and see you. Namaste.